With the first pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Anthony Edwards from the University of Georgia.
It seems the Timberwolves didn't get the memo about being terrible, and they're reshaping up to be a true championship contender in a Western Conference that's as wide open as it has been in recent memory. So what changed? How did the Timberwolves reverse course? The Minnesota Timberwolves are currently ranked first in the Western Conference with a record of 15-4 and a winning percentage of .789. They have 112.8 points for and 105.9 points against, and they are 9. 1 at home and 3 away. The Timberwolves have scored 112.0 points per game this season. If you haven't been paying close attention to the NBA previous year, the Western Conference standings may come as a bit of a shock. Sitting in the top 2, none other than the long-suffering Minnesota Timberwolves, who, as recently as last season, were taking heat for what was beginning to look like perhaps the worst NBA trade this millennium. Incredibly, there are 67 straight days with at least a share of first place in the conference. They have a 30-13 record, along with the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is by far the most in club history. Prior to this year, the Wolves had been in first a total of 20 non-consecutive days. The Timberwolves are on 67 straight days with at least a share of first place in the conference, which is the most in club history. They have only won 50-plus games 4 times in franchise history, but with 28 of the 30 NBA teams having a more difficult remaining schedule, the Timberwolves have a good chance at a historic season. The Minnesota Timberwolves defeated the New York Knicks 117-100. Anthony Edwards scored 23 points and grabbed 10 rebounds, and Karl Anthony Towns also contributed 20 points. The Timberwolves dominated the game, particularly in the second half, opening with an 11-0 run and maintaining a double-digit lead throughout. The signs of the ascent that was to come from Anthony Edwards have been around for a while. As far back as the 2022 playoffs, it was starting to become clear that he was more than worthy of his 2020 #1 overall pick status. But in order for the Timberwolves to transcend the middle-dwelling Groundhog Day they've been stuck in, the freak athlete was going to have to make the leap from star to superstar, and the 2023-24 season appears to be that year. He's averaging 25.5 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 5.2 assists a game on the season, and has shown he is absolutely good enough to be the best player on a true championship contender. And that's ultimately the most important component of the Wolves' success. Karl Anthony Towns contributed 20 points to the victory, while Rudy Gobert had an efficient game with 16 points, making all 7 of his field goal attempts. The Timberwolves built a comfortable lead, particularly in the second half. They opened with an 11-0 run, establishing control over the Knicks. Jalen Brunson led the Knicks with 25 points and 6 assists, and Julius Randle recorded a double-double with 21 points and 14 rebounds. Despite the efforts of Brunson and Randle, the Timberwolves' strong team performance, highlighted by contributions from multiple players, secured the victory. One of the biggest doubts about the potential of this Minnesota team was that its success in many ways hinged on Karl Anthony Towns' willingness to defer to Edwards. Towns were mentioned in numerous trade rumors throughout the summer, and it's been reported that the Wolves did in fact try to move him. It certainly couldn't have been easy for the former face of the #1 overall draft pick himself to accept a role as Robin when he spent his entire career being Batman. And he's had a moment or two of backsliding into a bad habit or two. He's still prone to foul trouble late in games, and as recently as this week, he faced immaturity criticism from even his own coach in his stat-padding quest that came in a loss at home against the Charlotte Hornets, in which he scored a franchise record 62 points. But he deserves credit for buying into a sidekick role and for his general willingness to serve as a mentor for the ascendant star Edwards. Minnesota relied on a 17-6 run to extend their lead to 93-71 late in the third quarter. Nickeil Alexander-Walker played a key role during this run, contributing with assists and a three-pointer. The Timberwolves continued their dominance in the fourth quarter, keeping a double-digit lead throughout and sealing the victory. The game was not without its challenges for the Timberwolves, as forward Jaden McDaniels suffered a right ankle injury in the first quarter and did not return to the game. Despite the setback, Minnesota demonstrated its depth and resilience to secure another impressive win. The Timberwolves have remained number 1 in the West for most of the year and have earned the league's best defensive rating. They have also been coached by coach Chris Finch, who will coach the Western Conference All-Star team in 2024. The team features Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns as All-Star reserves. When the Doomsday Preppers were shoring up the bunker for the Wolves last season, one of the biggest demerits was the apparent regression of Rudy Gobert's defensive prowess, which to that point had been the polarizing Frenchman's calling card. What looked then to be perhaps a defender entering his post-prime has shaped up to be something more of a temporary divergence. He's gone back to focusing on what he excels at and what's earned him 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. One thing every championship contender has in common, besides at least one superstar to carry them across the finish line, a solid supporting cast that filled specific roles and has fully bought into them. Enter stage right for the Timberwolves, point guard Mike Conley, a one-time All-Star who is universally beloved in the league and known for his basketball IQ and steadying locker room presence. Defensive savant Jaden McDaniels, who, wall-punching outbursts in the playoffs last year, aside from, has proven invaluable to forming the defensive identity of the team. And Naz Reid, the overqualified sixth man, who has won the hearts of Timberwolves fans with his tenacity, enthusiasm, and rare combination of size and ball handling. While Golden State benefited big time from the acquisition of Wiggins in itself, they also lucked out, as the top 3 protected first-round pick they got with him for the 2021 NBA draft ended up being the 7th pick. That meant they also managed to draft the highly talented youngster Jonathan Kuminga, all for the price of D'Angelo Russell and a couple of role players. An anonymous NBA coach blasted the Wolves for making a trade like that, as he called it highway robbery. One such major move was acquiring Andrew Wiggins from the Timberwolves in 2020. In hindsight, it was a terrible move, but it didn't seem this bad at the time. D'Angelo also averaged a career-high 23.6 points per game in 2019-20, which can somewhat justify the exchange, but their biggest mistake was definitely giving up that 2021 first-round pick. Yeah, so players come and go, but coaches are the real backbones. When things are going poorly, they're the first to shoulder the blame. But when things are going well, they're often the last to receive credit. Chris Finch took a lot of heat last season when the Wolves were struggling, although it's probably fair to say that questions about the savviness of the roster construction insulated him from a little of the flack. Yes, the players mentioned above are mostly to thank for that, but Finch is due praise for getting the team to buy into a defensive-minded identity that's paying dividends and for clearly being a savant in ego management. Now, it's too soon to say if the Timberwolves are having their best season in team history, although statistically, they're on pace to. That honor currently belongs to the Kevin Garnett-led team of 2003, and by the time June ends, they may finally have some hardware to show for it. So, that's it. Fingers crossed for the Timberwolves. Are they going to make us proud? Comment your thoughts and share the video with all the Wolfies. Keep on watching and hit the like button. For more updates, subscribe.